All right, today's lesson is a video lesson on solving equations. So let's first just remember some vocabulary. Remember, an equation will have an equal sign. So like 5 plus 3 equals 8. That is an equation, whereas 6 plus 5, that is an expression because it does not have an equal sign. Okay? So if I have an equation, there's always going to be a solution. All right, you're going to be able to solve for that variable. You're going to be able to solve for the variable. All right, so solving for the variable means that you would be able to plug that in. Okay, so it looks like if this is m plus 4 equals 10, then to solve it means that you know that m would equal 6. So to make sure you're correct, you could plug that in and evaluate it. Plug a 6 in there. 6 plus 4 would give me 10. All right, so that's just some vocabulary. So let's look today. So today we're going to figure out how to actually find the value of the variable. So like when you were young, it was kind of easy to make a good guess. Okay, you could do that. You can plug in numbers and just kind of do trial and error. Yep, this works. Nope, nope, it doesn't work. Keep going back and forth. You could make a tape diagram or an equation. You could work with the hangers. Okay. All of those work well, but sometimes they take time and error to do it. So there is another way, of course. There's another way which actually is showing mathematical ways to do that, some computation. All right. So in order to solve the equation, you are going to, you want to get the variable by itself. You want to get the variable by itself. That's the objective. So you want to do what's called isolate the variable. So you want to get the variable on one side by itself. So if I have x plus 4 equals 9. Now, guys, when it's this easy, obviously in your mind, you could do that guess and check and say, well, I know x is 5. I'm done. I don't have to do anything. That is true, but I want to start showing you the steps so that even when it's very simple like this, you can be writing down the steps and getting used to those. So when those problems become harder, you can rely on those steps you've been practicing. Okay, so in order to isolate the variable, you're going to do what's called inverse operation. Okay, and so you need to know that addition and subtraction are inverse operations of each other, and multiplication are inverse operations. All right. So remember, when we've talked about it, kind of with the hangers and things like that, we know that it is similar to a balance. It's a balance here. So whatever you do to one side, in order for it to stay balanced, you have to do it to the other side. Okay. So if I were to add some weight to this one, I would have to do the same thing on here if I wanted it to level out. Okay. Obviously, this needs a little bit of weight because this one is heavier. Okay. So remember those inverse operations, okay? Which if you look at these, 5 plus 4 is 9, 4 plus 5 is 9, but on the other side, 9 minus 5 is 4, 9 minus 4 is 5. So do you notice that those are fact families? We've kind of talked about that before, okay? So that's why they're called inverse of each other. All right, so let's go ahead and do some practice. So let's get out a notes page, and let's go ahead and write this down. So you're going to write solving for a variable. And let's start off with addition and subtraction, okay? All right, so if you look at this problem right here, it says b minus 5 equals 18, okay? So I want to isolate the variable by itself. So what that means is I want to get the variable by itself. Well, right now, remember, you're thinking of it as a balance, okay? You're kind of thinking of it as two separate things here. So whatever is on this side has to equal 18. So I want to get this b by itself. So I have to do something with this. Okay, I have to undo or do the inverse operation of 5. So you kind of ask yourself, what is the opposite of subtracting 5? And that would be to add 5. So I want to add 5 to both sides. Remember, you always have to do it to both sides. Okay, so on this side, I am left with b because this 5 and this 5 together, they cancel out. So kind of like a 5 minus 5, they cancel out. That would be left with 0. Then I say equals, and over here, 18 plus 5 would be 23. So B has to equal 23. Well, let's kind of check it out. Does 23 minus 5 give me 18? Yep, It does, so I know that that is correct. All right, let's try another one. All right, so x minus 5.6 would equal 25. So again, I want the variable by itself, so I have to get rid of this, okay? So you have to ask yourself again, what is the opposite or the inverse operation of subtracting 5.6? Okay, the opposite would be to add 5.6 to both sides. Remember, decimals, you have to line them up, okay? I want to see these steps, guys. I want to see these steps. You have to write them down, even when it becomes easy. All right, so these two together cancel out, which is exactly what I wanted because I only want x left on this side. Then it has to equal, when I add over here, that becomes 0.6, camera 1, so 30.6, okay? Then you can always go back and check it. Does 30.6 minus 5.6, would that give me 25? Well, yes, it would. Okay, so that is a true statement. Okay. All right, let's do an addition one. All right. So I've got y plus 17 equals 74. Okay, always go to the variable side. Okay, so I want to get y by itself, so I need to get rid of this part. I don't want that there anymore. So how do I get rid of a plus 17? You're going to do the opposite. Do the opposite. So the opposite of adding would be to subtract 17 from both sides. Okay. These would cancel out, which is exactly what I wanted. If they don't cancel out, then you've done something wrong. Okay. That means you have a plus 17 minus 17. Okay. So I'm left with y on this side has to equal, and then this would be 57. All right. So if you want to plug it back in, 57 plus 17, yes, that gives me 74. Okay, let's go for the next one. All right, find my variable. It's right here. I want to get p by itself on this side, so that means I have to get rid of this. So what is the opposite of adding 23? The opposite of adding 23 would be to subtract 23 from both sides. Remember, when I say both sides, that means that's both sides of the equal sign. Okay, so I'm left with my 23's cancel out, so I'm left with p on this side by itself, which is what I wanted, and then subtract. That gives me 58. Okay. All right, so I want to see these steps every time. I want to see these steps, okay? Because when it gets more difficult, if you've been practicing it, when they're easy, it makes it easier for you to follow. All right, so I want you to pause the video, and I want you to do all 4 of these problems. Show your work. So write it down first, then show your work, okay? All right, so pause the video. Come back when you have your answers. All right, check 1 and 2. See how you did with that. All right, make sure you're finishing 3 and 4. All right, check those answers. Now remember, I should be seeing work on your paper exactly like this, exactly like this. All right, so let's move on to multiplication division. Okay, so again, multiplying and dividing is the same. They're inverse operations of each other. All right, so if you look at this problem here, so x divided by 7 equals 35. So go to your variable side. I want to get rid of this dividing by 7. The opposite of dividing by 7 would be to multiply by 7. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 7. Okay. So these cancel out. They cancel out because one is the same number, one is a division, one's multiplication. That's why they cancel out. So I'm left with x equals, and just go ahead and solve that one. So that would be 35. I made them easy numbers. 7 times 3 is 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, 245. If I took 245 divided by 7, it's going to give me 35. All right, let's try the next one. Y divided by 4 would have to equal 14. okay? So here's my variable. I want to get rid of whatever's on the same side as my variable. The opposite of dividing by 4 is to multiply by 4. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. So these cancel out because they're the same number. Okay, so I'm left with y equals, multiply it out. That's 16, carry my 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1, 56. All right, so if you go back, 56 divided by 4 is going to give me 14. That's correct. Remember, if you have this number and you're dividing by something, you get a smaller number, this number has to be larger. This number has to be larger. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so now we've got some multiplication problems. Okay, so 6 times something would give me 24. Now, guys, I know you can figure that in your head, but let's just do the steps. What is the opposite of multiplying by 6? I'm going to divide by 6. Remember, this means to divide. Looks like a fraction. Divide by 6. So on this side, these cancel out. So I'm left with x has to equal 24 divided by 6 is equal to 4. Okay. Try the next one. 4 times something gives me 36. So get rid of this. This means 4 times. So the opposite of multiplying by 4 would be to divide both sides by 4. Okay. If you want to put a little divide sign so you remember what you're doing, that's fine too. Okay. So these cancel. I'm left with z has to equal 9. Z has to equal 9. Okay. All right. All right, you've got 4 questions to do. Okay, pause the video, and come back when you have your answers. Okay, write them down first and show me your work. Even on these, I want to see your work. All right, check those work. Check that work. All right, so now let's kind of put together what we've been working on before, writing equations, and then you're going to solve them. Okay, and then you're going to solve them. All right, so let's read this one. So it says Pete is 15 years old. That's how old he is. Okay, this is 6 years younger than his sister Victoria. So I'm telling you, here's my variable V because I don't know how old his sister is. Okay, write and solve an equation to find Victoria's age. All right, so let's first think about it. Anytime you think about older, younger, you really have to think about it. So Pete's 15 years old, and this is 6 years younger than his sister. Okay, 6 years younger than what his sister is. You got to think of it in your head. Is Victoria an older sister or a younger sister? So if Pete's 15 and this represents 6 years younger than the sister, then doesn't that mean that Victoria is an older sister? Victoria is an older sister, okay? So it means to me that Pete's age, so we can write this a couple different ways, right? So we've got Peter is 15, Pete's 15, and this is 6 years younger than his sister. So that means his sister must be 6 years older, 6 years older, and that has to equal, so 15 plus the 6 has to equal Victoria's age. Okay, has to equal Victoria's age, which so in this case, in order to solve it, that would be easy. So 15 plus 6, that's 21. So Victoria must be 21. Okay, you could have also written this another way, like 15. Let's start with this one. You could have written it. You could have written it as Victoria's age minus the 6 years would have to equal Pete because she's 6 years younger than Pete. Okay, sorry, because he is 6 years younger than Victoria. So again, then if you solve that equation, you'd add 6 to both sides, and you were left with Victoria's age equals 21. Same thing, okay? All right, let's see. Suppose Jane ran 15 miles in 5 days. 15 miles in 5 days. If she ran the same distance each day, how many miles did she run each day? Okay, so basically for 5 days, she ran a distance of something. D, we don't know. And it all came out to be 15 total miles. So if you kind of look at that, let's see, she ran a total of 15 miles. And so since we're talking about groups, so 5 days, that's talking about groups there. So 5 days times how much she ran in one day would equal her total. All right, so that's just an equation then. So 5 days times what she ran is your total. So the opposite of multiplying by 5 would be to divide by 5. So I'm left with her distance every day had to be 3. Okay. All right. The total time to burn a CD is 8 minutes. You guys don't even know what burning CDs means anymore. But anyway, that means putting songs together on like a compact disc. All right. The total time to burn is 8 minutes. Last weekend, he spent 96 minutes burning CDs. Write and solve an equation to figure out how many CDs he burned. All right. So it took him 96 minutes, okay? And it took him 8 minutes per CD, 8 minutes per CD. So what I don't know is how many CDs he burned. So let's just make that be our variable. I don't know how many CDs. So it was 8 minutes per CD. So 8 minutes times the CDs would have to give me a total of 96 minutes. So to solve this, I'm going to divide by 8. So X would have to equal 12, okay, that means there were 12 CDs that he burned, okay? All right, so that was just quickly kind of putting in the word problems. All right, so what I want you to do right now, you can do this on the back of the notes page you've been working on, do these 3 problems, and then we're going to come around and check your work. So write them down, and then we'll come around and check your work. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a great day.